Well, guys, we are back for another episode of the Liberal Asshole Show, episode 97. And what are today's topics?
Dragon Ball author dies, Simon Clark's decarbonizing cement video, Arizona governor wipes medical debt, Matt Walsh thinks homelessness is good, Trumpsters go misogynistic to Nikky Haley, Second Thought thinks American liberals are the most dangerous, and Sweden joins NATO. Good job, Putler.
Alright, so what do we start off with first?
Well, I guess we can start off with the death of Akira Toriyama.
So this is what you brought up. Of course, this is the offer of Dragon Ball, which is one of the biggest manga in the world too, especially since I got back into manga over the last few months. But of course, I don't really follow Dragon Ball like at all, unlike Terrell growing up. I was more into the Sailor Moon fandom when those two came to America in the 90s. But it sounds like this affects you more. So
it does, because I'm a big Dragon Ball fan, so
yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, he's a major. So he's a pretty big part of my life.
Yeah.
So
just like it sucks for me, just like it sucks for both of us when Yu-Gi-Oh's creator died.
Yeah.
So yeah, what happened?
So he died on March the 1st due to acute subdural hematoma.
And that is?
Wait a moment. That's where the there's a pool of blood that forms between the brain and the skull. Oof. And it's usually caused by a head injury strong enough to burst blood vessels, which can push and cause pressure on the brain. And it needs it needs emergency care. Like, you don't get it with it. Like, you don't get and you can die pretty quickly as well.
Sounds like almost something that could happen in the NFL. Ugh.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder, does it say how that happened?
We don't know how it happened, but we know that it's often some kind of blow to the head that would have been a pretty hard one too. So yeah.
That is
He was also in the other hard bit is that he was in the middle of several Dragon Ball related works, because the series was originally planned to come back in later this year.
Oh, so it was on hiatus.
Well, the anime was, the manga wasn't. The manga's been thing for a while.
Yeah, it's been going since like 1986.
Oh yeah, no, I'm talking about the Dragon Ball Super manga, where where the anime is currently on hiatus, but the manga isn't. They've had a couple of movies around Broly and a return of some kind of mechanized fake cell thingy.
Yeah, for all of you who don't know, usually anime, a good chunk of anime is based upon manga. That's how most anime starts off with. As a manga, the manga becomes popular and then becomes an anime. Now, what happens is when they do anime, they'll go, even 12 episodes, which is the lowest usually for an anime, one of the standard, the lowest standard. That goes through so many volumes so quickly that if they did come back, if they continued the anime, they would have to stop for a bit so the manga could get a heads up start, because eventually the anime would just overtake it. And that's also sometimes why they usually have filler arcs in anime and stuff to buy more time for the manga.
That's why in Yu-Gi-Oh they did that with a lot. That's why
the Dragon arc after Battle City, wasn't it?
That's why you had the arc with Noah and the Big Five, the Orichalcos arc, and the Grand Championship arc.
Yeah, I know that after Battle City. I still gotta get back to it, man. I'm still on the first episode of Yu-Gi and Merrick's final duel. Hopefully get to the manga on that eventually.
You're behind.
Yeah, I haven't watched the Yu-Gi anime a year or two or so, because I haven't been watching anime much the last few years. But yeah, usually that's what happens with manga. It's rare,
They did that a lot. That happens a hell of a lot with Dragon Ball as well. That's why the fight between Goku and Frieza goes for over 20 episodes.
Yeah, of course, stuff like Pokemon's the rare exception, a series based upon a video game first. But usually manga's
video game,
the
then
thing.
Anime, then manga. And the manga's also a different
There's something
and the manga's also a different thing too.
Yeah. Yeah, it just sucks. So we had a couple manga artists die recently. You had Yu-Gi-Oh! 2 years ago. Now you have Dragon Ball. Yep. Although this one doesn't affect me like it does you. I'm sure Terrell's probably devastated. Man, Sailor Moon going down, that would be suck. And of course, even though it's not manga related, Satoshi Tajiri dying would be very sad for both of us as creator of Pokemon. So, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happened and all that. But sucks to hear the Dragon Ball fandom that this happened. So anything left you have to say? And since you're the fan, anything left you have to say about it?
Rest in power, Akira Toriyama.
Alright, so...
And say hi to King Kai for us.
Alright, so now on to the next topic, I guess.
Number 2 will be Simon Clarke's Decarbonizing Cement video.
Now, remember some time ago we covered, I think it might have been last episode where we covered Simon Clarke's video of, is there good news on climate change and stuff? And he said he did a video on decarbonization cement production, because producing cement is one of the biggest emitters for CO2, and it's one of the ones that that I know of until now apparently had no way to fix it, because we need cement and there's no way to like make it clean and all that. But supposedly maybe there's a way we could fix it. So we're about to see on this video, how true is this? Could we finally make cement clean production, all that? We're about to find out. Play.
This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream and Nebula. The modern world is amazing. Humans have created systems that allow them to travel entire continents in a single day. Systems that free them from physical labour, allow them to eat whatever they want, to shelter from the elements. And these miracles have come about through two factors: the use of energy and the idea of individuals and corporations controlling the means of production. In other words, capitalism. While undoubtedly effective, these factors have unfortunately damaged our environment. Because there's no short-term financial cost to doing so, pretty much all human activities result in the emission of greenhouse gases, most notably carbon dioxide. And those gases are causing the climate to change. To prevent catastrophic change from occurring, then, we need to stop emitting those greenhouse gases. But that's a task that's spread across all of society. Each of these squares represents 1% of all greenhouse gas emissions in 2016. Approximately 16% of all emissions came from transport, 24% from energy used in industry, 17% from energy used in buildings, and about 14% from other uses of fuel. Using energy accounts then for almost 3/4 of our emissions.
Okay, so let's see. So this is from 2016. So 16% said was from transport. That could be somewhat resolved and all that. Yeah. Industry, it depends. Maybe. I'm not sure. It depends on the industry. Buildings, I don't know. It depends on, like, what do they mean by buildings doing? Like, energy, like, to power the buildings or what are building them? So I don't know about that. The other fuels I have no idea about. And looks like the 30%, I can't remember what he said it was about.
The remainder comes from landfills, how we use the land, notably for agriculture, which is...
agriculture, I don't know if we're going to be able to do anything about that right now because we need food.
Not much.
Like, the only thing we could think of right now is maybe make drought-resistant crops and lab-grown meat, but that's still probably a long way for both of them, unfortunately.
All emissions, and from other industrial emissions, in particular construction. Let's be super optimistic and say...
And yeah, cement is definitely going to be in the construction one, which that one, until apparently now, we really can't do anything about because we need to construct stuff.
We can fully decarbonize how we generate and use energy. Almost 3/4 of our emissions gone. But that still leaves over 1/4. We can reduce some of these emissions by stopping deforestation, producing less meat, and having better waste management, but that still leaves billions of tons of carbon that are emitted every year from agriculture and from construction.
I mean, if we did knock it down to like this much, this looks like 19% of what it originally was. Maybe Earth could potentially handle it a little bit. I doubt it, but it would be a lot better than it is now. It would definitely like give us a lot more time.
And construction uses a lot of cement, made in a plant like the one behind me. And that's a big problem.
So how you make cement is you take a mixture of raw materials. A large proportion of that is calcium carbonate, CaCO3. You heat that up to a very high temperature and a calcination reaction occurs, which is the CO2 is separated from the calcium carbonate to leave calcium oxide, which is then used in the cement process. that CO2 is emitted to atmosphere at the moment. The emission of CO2 is unavoidable as part of the cement production process due to the chemicals that form the cement precursors. For that reason, that even if you were to run the cement production process on renewable energy for the heat source, you would still have an emission of CO2.
And you know what makes this even worse? The fact that we're not going to stop building new buildings anytime soon. In fact,
and also for roads too, remember.
All of the infrastructure that we need by 2050 hasn't been built yet. So cement is really very important for urbanization, for our infrastructure.
Same problem is with steel as well.
Something that's available globally and cheaply.
This is a huge problem, one of many that needs to be solved if we're going to avoid catastrophic climate change. My videos are often very top-down and not specific, and they also almost always end with some variant of, this is serious, but we still have time, so let's do something about it. In this video then, I'm going to do something a bit different. I'm going to shine a light on one particular aspect of the climate crisis and on something that we are doing. I'm going to talk about a company called Lilac, which aims to decarbonize the cement industry.
We're about an hour and a half southeast of Brussels, where there is a cement plant, and on this cement plant we've constructed the Lilac 1 pilot plant for the purpose of demonstrating the Lilac technology.
And just to be clear, Calix isn't paying for this. They haven't paid me, they haven't sponsored the video, they just invited me to come and have a look at the plant and judge it for myself.
As a further disclaimer, let me be clear that this is not the solution. The company says as much. They are just one of many companies working in the field of decarbonizing cement. If you'd like to learn more about other people working in this industry, then check out Just Have a Think's excellent video on the subject. With all that being said though, let's take a look at a case study of a new technology being used to combat part of the climate crisis, why it's being used, and where we are on a timeline.
Lilac stands for low emissions intensity lime and cement, and this is a new type of carbon capture technology that has a heated tube at its heart. So it has a furnace that gives its energy and heat to this steel tube. And down the center of that tube, we simply drop this cement meal. Cement meals largely contain limestone, and limestone releases almost half of its weight as CO2. And so this is an unavoidable part of making cement. This is just a way of ensuring that the CO2 that is released from that limestone is kept pure. And so the real benefit of this is that unlike other capture technologies that require energy,
so it sounds like
to
carbon
separate
capture
a gas from a gas, by keeping the CO2 pure and by closely integrating with the plant, we don't have much of an energy penalty. And so therefore we should be able to capture these process emissions at very low cost.
This plant has been retrofitted with a prototype of the Lilac technology, capturing the carbon given off during the cement production process. Let's see how it works.
So what we have in front of us here is the Lilac pilot plant itself. This pilot plant processes about 5% of the cement plant's total throughput. So it's not completely integrated with the cement plant. Using this facility, we've been able to demonstrate that the core technology, the core Lilac technology, works. So that up there, which is being worked on at the moment, is the bottom of the reactor tube. The very hot cement meal that's been calcined and emitted at CO2 has come out of the reactor tube, comes down this funnel, and then it drops down and through this air slide to be taken away back to the cement plant. So this is the bottom of our furnace. This is where we heat the reactor tube up to the 1,000 degrees Celsius it needs to drive the calcination reaction. In Lilac 1 we use natural gas, but in Lilac 2 and in future projects we'll use the sorts of fuels which cement plants typically use, which would be more like alternative fuels and things like that. So this is the top of our reactor tube. So we're standing above the top of the furnace which heats up the reactor tube. The material which is being processed is dropped into the tube from this point, and the CO2 is extracted from here as well to be cleaned up and returned to the process. So this is where a lot of the smarts of the technology is focused. Lilac 1 has done its duty. It's demonstrated that the core technology works. So this won't exist on Lilac 2. This is a burner. It's there only to allow us to test the cyclone stack above. It provides hot gas for the cyclone stack, which allows us to test the operation of that. So this is where we start to get to the more typical cement equipment. What we have here is a 3-stage cyclone stack. Each stage of the cyclone contributes to the preheating of the cement meal. We have to design this part of the process to sort of sit on this optimal point where we've done as much preheat as possible without calcining the material. And every bit of CO2 that we extract here is a bit of CO2 that we can't separate within our reactors.
It's worth stressing, by the way, that LILAC technology isn't capable of fully decarbonizing cement production on its own, because the emissions from cement production aren't just from the chemical reaction. They're also from the fuel burned to heat up various components.
You're quite right, there are other sources of emissions. To create the heat required to drive off that CO2, we need energy. And traditionally that's been through the use of coal, and coal is an emitting fossil
I mean, that
fuel.
could potentially get
Two
fixed
main
eventually.
routes to go down, one of which is to switching to lower
Like, we have ways to
fossil fuel
get fix
or
that
lower
at
emitting
least.
fuels. Again, with our technology, we just need to heat a steel tube. So we can actually be fuel agnostic. So we'll start off on whatever the host plant is using, whether that's alternative fuel, and then have the option to moving to zero emissions fuels such as clean electricity or hydrogen or biomass. The other route that we can take is actually just capturing those flue emissions using a very small additional capture component. So we've got a lot of options when it comes to complete decarbonisation and potentially even carbon negative CO2.
Now, there are probably some of you in the audience who are aghast at me talking about the dirty subject of carbon capture. That's what LILAC is. It's an example of carbon capture technology. And you may be aghast because it's something that I have very publicly dismissed in the past. But in the past, I don't think I did a very good job of making a very important distinction. Carbon capture can refer to sucking carbon out of the atmosphere, direct air capture, or stopping carbon from entering the atmosphere at the point it's burned, carbon capture and storage, or CCS. The reason that I, and many others, are opposed to carbon capture is that historically it has been used as a justification for continuing the burning of fossil fuels. We can keep burning the fuel, we'll just capture the CO2, like now or maybe later. Frankly, doesn't work and delays meaningful change, prolonging our dependence on coal, oil and natural gas. And I want to be clear, my stance has not changed on that. Carbon capture is not an appropriate tool in the context of energy production. In this instance, however, we are talking about the CCS of unavoidable emissions. The use of carbon capture in the context of cement production isn't delaying decarbonisation. It's pretty much the only realistic path to decarbonisation because of how cement is made and the fact that cement production simply isn't going to stop. But let's say that we don't want to fund any kind of carbon capture, lest the technology be used elsewhere and delay meaningful change.
So what are the alternatives?
Well, alternatives to cement, I mean, cement is one of the most used raw materials in the world. I think it's the second most after water, so it's used just everywhere. Wood might be considered an alternative. It's a building material. There are other building products, such as calcined clays, which don't inherently emit CO2 through their production process. However, there are barriers to the use of those materials. They're nowhere near as well known as Portland cement. The building standards are not based around those materials, so they can't just be dropped in as replacements. So for the moment, there are no real drop-in alternatives to cement.
When we're building bridges and our homes, roads and general infrastructure, it is a very low cost, very stable, very well understood and safe material. We can't really use materials that can only be used by the really rich sections of society. This does need to be material that's used globally and widely.
This century, we have to balance idealism and realism. There are a great many opportunities in the coming decades to remake sectors of society, of industry, to be more egalitarian and inclusive and efficient. But we have to accept the fact that we don't have long to decarbonize the world's economy. Just a few decades. While an ideal solution in construction would probably involve some new material that can be made cheaply and in a way that doesn't emit carbon, CCS is a technology that already exists.
I don't know what's better than
It doesn't
cement,
require new legislation and can act as a short to medium term solution and be rolled out in just a matter of years in a way that the industry can actually get behind.
This was the first plant. This has got the capacity to capture about 25,000 tonnes of CO2 per year. This is about 5% of a typical cement plant throughput. The plant that we'll be building in Germany next year, that's 4 times the capacity. It's got a similar footprint, but 4 tubes in it. And that's effectively 20% of an entire plant's emissions that we'll be capturing. That's about 100,000 tonnes of CO2. And
I mean, catching 20% is good.
We can very simply duplicate. So we'll be able to get to 100% very quickly. In fact, we're already starting full-scale engineering that will really capture all of the unavoidable process emissions now. So
well, that would be very good as well.
Depending on how quickly our other cement plant hosts can move, we should be able to have something operational by 2026, perhaps.
But
that's only 2 years away. Nice.
I just want to point something out.
Oh, that's nice.
How did we get in this mess? The reason that we're in this situation is because we live in a world governed by capitalism, and under that system, there is no cost to emitting greenhouse gases, and so no incentive to not do so. Climate change is an unpriced.
That's why we need regulations to make it a cost.
A company like whose business model is based on preventing carbon emissions. So what changed?
It has required the intervention of governments through these funding mechanisms in order to get through
regulate capitalism for the win
scale up stage, which is notoriously
and government regulation, which triggers right wingers.
Like the difference between wastewater. So that if you've got your sewage, if you're not obliged to treat it, just dumping it in the rivers or sea costs you nothing. But when it's just obliged to treat those emissions, then that's just a cost. So policy is extremely important. This CO2 is ultimate. We know it is something that shouldn't go into the atmosphere, and so it is ultimately something that we just needs policy support to get there. With Europe, we've got the Green Deal, we've got an emissions trading system, and that's going to get us to zero.
The cost of emitting carbon through Europe's emissions trading scheme, as an example, is something which is going to be necessary to roll out the technology. Even if we come up with the perfect solution, if it's cheaper just to emit the CO2, everyone will just do that. So there needs to be a reason that people will actually implement the technology. In a way where we are collaborating with the European Commission and with other industry partners and research institutions to develop this technology. So yes, it's part of the private sector, but it really is a collaboration. Whether it's the right approach or not, it's a system which has been put in place, which in our case, we believe is effective for solving this problem. You know, inevitably, there's always a better way to do something. This is the system that we have, and we'll make the absolute best that we can of this system, yeah.
Keeping the modern world amazing requires climate buckshot. Lots of solutions all at once, the largest one of which is decarbonizing our energy supply. And that means removing our dependence on fossil fuels in the next few decades. End of. But as we've seen, there are emissions from other smaller sectors that are unavoidable and so need to be captured, mitigated. And that's not accepting defeat, that's just being realistic. But here's the thing.
We have the answers.
We have the tech. We just need to do it, and do it faster. And accept the fact that this is a problem that requires solutions from every angle. One of which is, under certain fringe cases, the dirty subject of carbon capture.
Talking about the climate crisis is like that old story of blind men describing an elephant. One thinks the elephant is like a broom, another like a snake.
Alright, the rest of the video is just promoting Nebula, so what do you have to say about that?
Interesting. Genuinely interesting.
Yeah, hopefully it'll lead to making cement more clean, all that. But of course, then we gotta get the next elephant in the room, steel production. And then of course, although there are options we could do about, but it's still not really viable, we gotta do something about agriculture too. Because those are like the three big ones I can think of that we have really no way to lower emissions on that. We have ways for other things, but not much about that. Also, he has an interesting video I just saw right here on the side. How to decarbonize transport. That could be an interesting one, which we've covered somewhat before. Maybe I'll go put that in general for a reminder later. Maybe we'll cover that next time. Alright, So I guess that's it for that topic. So I guess on to the next one.
And that is Arizona governor wipes medical debt.
Which is based. Remember it was
Yes.
Wait, it was Connecticut governor that did that recently, or some form of debt cancellation, which was absolutely based. Now Arizona's governor has just done that. $2 billion worth of it. Absolutely based.
Yeah.
So now let's watch this.
It's not often that I come out on this show and I have just flat out good news for you guys. But on this one I do. So Katie Hobbs, who's the governor of Arizona, Democrat, announced that Arizona is going to wipe out $2 billion worth of medical debt held by Arizonans. This is a big deal. So here, I'll play for you some of what she said, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it.
For many, healthcare is the difference between being confined to one's home and being able to enjoy time with their families. It's the difference between being held back by a chronic condition and pursuing a lifelong career. In some instances, healthcare is the difference between life and death. No Arizonan should have debt hanging over their head because they needed help through no fault of their own. As governor, I take seriously my duty to protect vulnerable Arizonans from falling into medical debt and make healthcare more affordable. Today, I am so proud to announce that we are taking steps to retire medical debt for up to an estimated 1 million Arizonans. That's a fresh start, a new chapter, and a huge weight taken off the shoulders for every single one of them. This is an investment in our future and reflects my commitment to put the needs of working Arizonans first.
Okay, Arizona's population in 2020 is 7.15 million. So up to 1/7, which is really huge.
Using up to $38 million in American Rescue Plan funds, we are working with partners at RIP Medical Debt to buy back up to approximately $2 billion worth of medical debt held by Arizonans. Hardworking, middle-class Arizonans should not be forced to have those difficult kitchen table conversations because of medical debt from conditions they cannot control.
So she's following in the footsteps,
which is something no American should ever have to face.
Connecticut did.
Yep, exactly.
We already discussed that the
and you make me jealous.
Came out and said we're going to wipe out a bunch of medical debt, and that was phenomenal. That was phenomenal. You want to talk about something that's going to raise your approval rating? You want to talk about something that's both moral and ethical?
Maybe Dementia Joe should look into
politics.
that.
This
is it.
Brain dead. Maybe
this is it right here. Now, by the way,
Joe
Biden,
who's being only kept alive by the dark
if Joe
side
Biden
of the
were to
force,
immediately
like Trump,
cut off the money and the weapons flowing to Israel and condemn Israel, do a permanent ceasefire,
and
announce I'm wiping out all the medical debt in the
bombing
country.
them if they don't.
Then I think he'd be back to being.
Or another option too, instead of using that money to help cut medical bills, how about also send those weapons to Ukraine, who absolutely needs them, unlike Israel?
A massive favorite against Trump. All the polls now have him down. I think that would be a game changer if he were to do those two things. So here, I'm going to give you some more specifics.
I think if he
Governor
stopped the
Hobbs
Hamas-Israel war, that would pretty much guarantee him his victory. That's the main reason why he's struggling.
Governor Katie Hobbs announced on Monday new steps her administration is taking to tackle healthcare costs and the rising amount of medical debt impacting Arizonans. The governor's office is partnering with RIP Medical Debt.
Biden's getting up. The gap's continuing to close.
Yeah, that's right, because we covered that last episode too.
Watching a program to give medical
as always, a lot like everyone on the left doesn't seem to cover that. Maybe they're being like hardcore anti-Biden biased to a point of not being objective.
That for up to 1 million Arizonans. Arizona will use up to $30 million in federal COVID-19 relief money. Now, by the way, let's pause on that for a second. To wipe out $2 billion in medical debt, they negotiated we'll pay $30 million. That is a tiny percentage of $2 billion. And $30 million is wiping out $2 billion. You know what percentage of Americans has medical debt? 41%. It's the #1 cause of bankruptcy in this country, medical debt. Joe Biden could probably make a deal to wipe out that medical debt for 41% of Americans for pennies on the dollar. There is no reason not to do this. And by the way, the fact that the Connecticut governor did this first reminded everybody that, the government does have the ability to do just good things.
Yep, I think we even covered it when we did about the Connecticut thing. Hope this will be a launch pad for others to do so. Now we have number 2 done it. Now keep doing this in every other state Democratic governors, including you, Westmore.
Can use their power for good things. And that's what that is. And Katie Hobbs took a look at that.
And you will benefit from it from the elections.
Probably had some internal polling showing that, you know, hey, when this guy did this, he went up 10 points in the polls or something. And she was like, okay, I'll do that. Every Democratic governor in the country should be doing this.
And hopefully this is the start now. It's number 2.
RIP Medical Debt will use the cash to buy debt from providers for pennies on the dollar, but instead of collecting it, the nonprofit forgives it. That means that $30 million could erase $2 billion in debt. Eligible residents include those who make up to 400% of the poverty line, or those whose debt is equal to 5% of their income. For a family of 4, that means if they make up to nearly $125,000, they would qualify. So, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys can go back and watch the video when we talked about the Connecticut governor doing it. I think the Connecticut governor was a little more aggressive than this, too. I think there wasn't even a thing where you have to, like, apply or whatever. It's just automatic. It might be automatic here, too, but I think it's a little more means-tested here than it was in the other instance. Arizona's family has previously reported on RIP Medical Debt when Scan Group, a non-profit healthcare and care organ, purchased approximately $110 million of Arizona's medical debt in the summer of 2023 to clear up collection accounts. In that instance, $345,000 was paid to debt acquisition company RIP Medical Debt, which then bought those collection accounts for pennies on the dollar. But is it legal? The governor was asked whether using these public tax dollars to forgive private debt violates a provision in Arizona's constitution known as the gift clause. Quote, I can assure you we would not be taking this action if we weren't fully confident in the legality of it. There you have it, man. There you have it. It's a reminder that good things are possible. The government can do good things.
Remember when the Connecticut Republicans, their only response to it was basically, oh, it's mean-tested. If anything, they were more left-wing on the issue, which was stunning. I wonder what those dipshit Republicans in Arizona have to say about this, because no one could argue this is good. No one can argue this is a good thing unless you're an idiot.
And we should force them to do good things.
Yeah, unless you don't have a
massive
brain.
credit to the governor of Connecticut who started this trend.
Thank you.
Katie
now
Hobbs
keep going, people.
Every Democratic governor should do it.
Yeah.
Joe Biden should be paying attention because this is an absolute game changer for people. Let's be honest. Medical debt shouldn't be a thing. Other developed countries don't have medical debt.
Looking at you down under.
Their healthcare systems
very jealous and
are
enviously.
Paid for by tax dollars, so it's free at the
No,
point of
we've got
service.
our own
We shouldn't have medical
relatively
debt.
more minor
Like I said,
issues.
41% of Americans have medical debt. It's the number one cause of
Australian
bankruptcy in the US.
privilege strikes again.
That's got to end. And here we have some Democrats doing something about it. And at the state level, look, like I said before, at the state level, they have been impressing me. If you don't believe me, it's all about Minnesota Democratic Governor Tim Walz, his record. Universal free school meals, legal weed, carbon-free electricity, giving $1,300.
Like we said before, Midwest Democrats know how to do progressive shit. It's the East Coast and West Coast Democrats that don't know shit because they're neoliberal cunts.
It's all these great things.
Please, Midwest Democrats, spread everywhere, especially out here in the West Coast, and you know how to do shit unlike these feckled pricks.
And this is how you get reelected, this is how you get people to like you, and this is how you improve everybody's lives for the better. So let's keep going. Let's keep going. Because I never would have thought that the Democrats would actually have the balls to do something like this. Now at the state level, they're doing it. There's no reason why more can't do it, and there's no reason why this can't become
because they're actual progressives, unlike most East Coast and West Coast Dems in power, who are not progressive at all.
Everybody, please subscribe to the channel. That helps me out massively. Costs absolutely nothing. Click that bell icon so you get a notification every time the video drops. Click that like button, leave a little comment.
Enablers/supporters, depending on who it is.
Yep, so that's it for the video. So you guys see about that. Arizona's Democrat governor being very progressive and base and all that.
Yep.
And yet, medical debt should not exist. There should be no private health care either. It should be government run like the NHS in the UK. That's what I want to go to. It's based, and it works, and it's cheaper, better outcomes. No excuses about it. Alright, so now, on to the next topic.
Matt Walsh thinks homelessness is actually good because he's evil.
Why are you surprised?
Nope.
So Matt Walsh, of course, being the evil cunt he is, actually did a video cover that says, he said homelessness is lucrative. Which I'm sure you're thinking, how is that lucrative? How much of an idiot you have to be? Well, he is an idiot. So let's see his argument of how it's so lucrative to be homeless. I'd like to see this excuse.
One of the common things that we see on the right is that they like to invert power dynamics and make you believe that all the people who really have the power are actually the victims, and vice versa. The people who have no power and no money and no support and control no institutions, they're actually the oppressors. So here's Matt Walsh. He's gonna lay out this dynamic in a way that is almost a caricature of itself. Like, this is Matt Walsh parodying Matt Walsh, basically. But he's serious. He's serious. Watch this.
So if you're giving $400,000 to a random homeless guy, the chances that you're throwing money at a crazy, violent drifter is pretty high.
Sure,
and even
buddy.
if he isn't crazy and or isn't violent, it's still going to be a disastrously bad idea in nearly every case to give large sums of money to a homeless person. As I tried to explain many times, most of these people aren't homeless.
We've done studies on this. If you put like homeless people in an apartment and all and get them off the streets, they do better. Because that is that's also a big reason. I mean, that's a good indicator of success in life if you have a place to live. That way, have somewhere to go, where your money goes and all that. You need to have a place to live to start off with, for crying out loud.
Simply because they have no money and they have no home. Okay? And anytime I say that, there's always the idiots who laugh. What do you mean? What do you mean they're not homeless because they don't have a home? That's the definition of homeless. No, you morons. Give them money and a home, and they'll be homeless again 15 minutes later. Do you understand that?
No.
So that clearly shows that the problem is not simply they don't have money. No. Give them money. Most of these people on the street have been given lots of money. Depending on where they are, panhandling is lucrative. Many of them
Sure, buddy. Sure. It's lucrative to panhandle for money.
Panhandling
it is not lucrative at all. In fact, you're more likely to be shot in the head than you are to get any significant amount of money.
Because we've covered over the years how hardcore anti-homelessness a lot of like very rich cities in America have come in. It's getting ridiculous. They just want to die.
Yeah.
All right, let's let him finish.
To the point of people going around to actually murdering them.
Been given lots of money. Depending on where they are, panhandling is lucrative. Many of them make more money than people that work minimum wage and live in apartments. You know.
Oh, shut the fuck up, Walsh, you stupid
Where does the
fuck!
money go?
Oh my god!
Where does it go? Does it the magical money fairy come and take it? No, they spend it on drugs. Is what they do.
No.
That's why they're still homeless.
No, most would.
They're not stashing it away and hanging on to it.
So the argument he's making...
That's what you would do, Walsh. That's what rich people do when they have a whole bunch of money. They hoard it.
If you give these people money and a house, they'll be homeless again 15 minutes later. So that's his view of it.
Because he's a jackass.
It's almost like they're predestined or, genetically guaranteed to end up homeless. Like, it's just a character defect. It's just a flaw. That's what's going to happen with them no matter what. That's the argument he's making. The problem for his argument is that this has been studied 1,000 ways to Sunday. And the findings are actually astonishing because it's only a small percentage that fit the description he's laying out. He's making it seem like every homeless person is either mentally ill or a drug addict or both.
It's common anti-homelessness stereotypes and all that, which not even close to accurate at all.
Actually, a relatively small percentage that are drug addicts or mentally ill or both. In the majority of cases that people are homeless, it is literally because they don't have the money and they don't have a roof over their head. So it is because of economic degradation that led them to where they are. Again, I want to be clear. That's not my opinion. There's been a number of studies that verify that and validate that. And by the way, here's something people don't usually think about, which is true. There's different stages and different levels to homelessness. So oftentimes the homeless people that most see on the street are homeless people who are at like the extreme terminal end of the homeless spectrum. There are hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people who are homeless and kind of couch surfing. I go to my uncle's house this day, I go to my friend's house that day. I'm trying to get a place. I'm struggling to get a place. My job doesn't pay enough. I ran through all my savings. I don't have enough money. I'm not getting hired for reasons X, Y, or Z. There are plenty of people who are couch surfing, who are homeless. There are plenty of people who are living in a car who are homeless. And these are like the earlier stages of homelessness. And then, you know, that final stage, which is when most people see homeless folks on the street. It's like, you know, they've been homeless for years, sleeping under a bridge, whatever it might be. But what he's trying to do is redefine it. It's not an economic problem. It's not a systemic problem. It is an individual moral failing.
It's only an economic problem, idiots.
But again, the facts butt up against the reality, because the facts are, for most people, it actually is that they just don't have the money and can't get a roof over their head. And if you gave them, by the way, he acts like, well, if you give them money, that's not going to solve anything. Guys, we have programs about this. Remember the Stockton, California UBI program? The UBI program, people just got $500 a month, no strings attached.
Or in Finland, too, when they did it years ago.
In the overwhelming majority of cases,
Exactly, yep.
people spent the money on the electric bill, on the water bill, on food, on necessities. It was a tiny, tiny percentage that went to vices, like alcohol, for example, or gambling. So the overwhelming majority of the money went to the right places. Because it turns out, when people need help, if you give them a little help, it helps. Like, it works. It's spent on reasonable things. Now, is that me saying there's nobody out there who's homeless, who if you give them the money, they're going to go get high or whatever? No, of course not. But look, I got to be honest with you. Even in those situations where you do give a homeless guy $10 or $20 and they do use it to go get high. If my ass was on the street for weeks on end, it's freezing fucking cold, I feel miserable, the least I want is to feel a little high to take the edge off of the harsh, brutal reality that I'm living in. So I can't even judge those people. You know, if I was homeless, if I was in that situation, nothing went right. You know, I'm cold, I'm miserable, I feel like I have no hope. Why wouldn't I want to get high? So it's just, ugh. The way he talks about this stuff. He said panhandling is lucrative. Imagine using the word lucrative. Yeah, you know, when I'm in D.C., I see it sometimes. People basically asking for money. Sometimes they're walking through traffic. They have like a cup out. The idea that that's lucrative is preposterous. By no definition of the word lucrative.
It is beyond stupid.
See, a guy like Matt Walsh, he inverts the power dynamic every time. So,
he's evil.
To him, you know, these homeless people, they're the problem. They're not victims. They make our cities dirty. They're disgusting. They're the problem with society. But the billionaires, the exploitative
people
billionaires,
going around murdering.
They're the good guys.
Going around murdering homeless people.
They're the ones who are oppressed because the state wants to tax them so much. It's so unfair. They're going to take 50, 60% of their money. That's
that would be very base. What are you crying about?
Victims they are. You see the trick that conservatives play? Because the reality is, the billionaires are exploitative. The billionaires are oppressive. The billionaires,
the rich are exploitative, and they need to be regulated and taxed heavily.
Have money they can't even spend in a given
and they can cry and moan all they want.
Are the ones who are oppressed, downtrodden, swept aside by society, treated subhuman. So he flips the power dynamics. They do it with black and white. They do it with man and woman. They do it with rich and poor. And this is, I've never seen a more clear, platonic ideal of that. Let's watch one more time.
So if you're giving $400,000 to a random homeless guy, the chances that you're throwing money at a crazy, violent
nobody's going to give $400,000 to a homeless person, brain dead moron.
It's still going to be a disastrously bad idea.
That's the same amount of money Biden makes every year.
Give large sums of money to a homeless person. As I tried to explain many times, most of these people aren't homeless simply because they have no money and they have no home.
That's literally what the data shows, that they are homeless because of that.
Matt Walsh denying facts and reality? Why am I not surprised?
It's a relatively small number.
That's his entire
mentally ill or drug addicted or both. But this is
wrong about everything.
Put that pathology on all homeless people, so we have some sort of societal, systemic rationalization for why these people are doing what they're going to do, as opposed to something that we can actively change.
And every time I say that, there's always the idiot who laugh. What do you mean? What do you mean they're not homeless because they don't have a home? That's the definition of homeless. No, you morons. Give them money and a home, and they'll be homeless again 15 minutes later. Do you understand that? So that clearly shows that the problem is not simply they don't have money. Give them money. Most of these people on the street have been given lots of money. Depending on where they are, panhandling is lucrative.
Oh, it's not.
What a dumb.
Can't make it up.
Make more money than people that work minimum wage and
Walsh,
live in
you're
apartments.
so stupid.
You can make hundreds of dollars a day
Of
doing
course
it.
he is.
Where does the money go? Where does it go?
No,
Does
remember,
the magical
he's
money
not
fairy come and take
stupid.
it?
He's evil.
Yep.
He's one of the people that completely believes in what he says.
That's like we did our grifter video some time ago. He actually believes what he's saying, and he is dumb as hell.
That's why they're still homeless.
Yes.
They're not stashing it away and hanging on to it.
These homeless people have it too good. They're living high on the hog. They're getting high. They're lucratively
Homelessness are very lucrative. Did you know that?
Flipping the power dynamic in society. That's what conservatives do. And, you know, it almost blows my mind that anybody could listen to something like this and be like, yeah, he's nailing it.
He thinks he's nailing it because he's a deaf shit.
Yep. Yeah.
So, what do you gotta say about Matt Walsh? Didn't you know homelessness is lucrative?
Yeah, apparently.
Oh my God!
What
a
I don't believe a word coming out of Matt Walsh's mouth. So.
Oh, that was great. Absolutely insane.
Yeah.
He fixed that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Homelessness, of course, is not lucrative. It's a hard, rough life, and if you give people money, they will help get themselves in a better position. Whereas the rich, however, when you give them money, they hoard it. That's why they should get no money, and we should get all the money.
Yes.
All right.
That's good.
Now, on to the next topic.
Trumpsters just being Trumpsters towards Nikki Haley because they're misogynistic Nazis and they're Nazis. They're evil.
Remember some episodes ago where we covered a whole bunch of Trumpsters being incredibly racist towards Vivek because he's Indian and he's Hindu and all that? Well, now the other angle happened with Nikki Haley. Now a whole bunch of Trump supporters are being against her because she's a woman. Because, you know, women can never be president, apparently, even though she agrees with everything they want. So, the ugly part of Republicans that commonly shows up again, people. So, let's watch this. I saw this already. I already saw this already. And, oh, boy. They got pretty deep up there. This is getting almost towards Charlie Kirk to Taylor Swift level misogyny. And remember that meltdown they had.
Yes, I remember that one.
So we got some on-the-ground interviews.
Boy, was I angry in that one.
This was during Super Tuesday, and they wanted to see, hey, what are these Republican voters thinking? Of course, you have Trump versus Nikki Haley. That's what it was. Haley has since dropped.
Oh yeah. Okay, Kyle, right.
Out. She was only able to win this.
Haley just dropped out recently, but she's not endorsing Trump, and she's saying Trump's gonna have to earn her supporters' endorsement, her vote, which I agree with that. Of course, you think Trump and Trumpsters care? No, they don't care.
It's a religion that's displaced Christianity, and now their main religion is Trumpism.
Yep, when they lose, they got no one to blame themselves. Guys. I think I can't remember who it was. I think it was David Dole covered it earlier because I was watching one of his videos. But these Trumpsters are literally acting like Hillary did in 2016 to us Bernie supporters, acting like all spoiled and entitled and think you're gonna vote for us anyway, so we're not gonna do anything. Like fuck you and all that. No, that's not gonna happen. When you get people pissed off, they're not gonna vote for you out of spite.
State of Vermont
and actually,
Washington.
It's the establishment who gave us Trump because they were the ones who voted for Hillary over Bernie. Shame on them for voting for
Trump
Hillary.
won every other one under the sun. Now she didn't
endorse
endorse Trump when she dropped out, but it's interesting to hear these voters talk about what their thoughts are on Nikki Haley. These are Republican-based voters. So first, let's go here to a diner in Allen, Texas, and I'm going to let this clip do the talking for itself. This is really something.
NBC just reported that Michelle Obama has said she will not run for president.
Thank God.
Okay.
Yes.
Ainsley said, I would love the reaction from a woman in the crowd. And
I wouldn't vote for a woman, and especially, Nikki Haley, I'm just going to say this. She's probably menopausal. We don't need that.
Okay.
Whoa, boy.
What did I just say?
She said we don't need a woman as president that's going through menopause. That's from a woman, too, that said that. Oh, boy. Internalized misogyny, people.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. So, menopausal... As someone just posted at the bottom of the tweet that in Kyle's video, so menopausal women cannot be voted for, and women who are not yet menopausal are too young to be president. Do I have that right? Oh, boy!
And don't forget that postmenopausal women are too old as well. Because they're all total misogynists.
Mm-hmm. And then they'll probably say, ugh, they're too old and ugly to be president. Ugh. Because, like we covered about Taylor Swift and all that, looks always go after women. Men are never going after for looking old and all that. Never. It's only a women's thing that is going after. But, first off, we don't know if she's going through menopause. And also, even if she was, who cares? Go after Haley for her terrible policies, not because she's old woman or menopausal, not. Just like when we talk about Vivek, go after him for his policies. Don't go after him because he's Hindu or Indian. It's just racism and misogyny at this point. It's ridiculous.
He said, how about we vote for people regardless of their gender, just the right person for the job for America?
Bruh.
Even Fox News had to...
When you are so extreme and so immensely sexist, even the Fox News host feels the need to clean up what you just said.
That's pretty wild.
She goes, I wouldn't vote for a woman. And then she goes, she's probably menopausal. We don't need that. And he's like, oh, yeah, but she said is regardless of gender, you vote for who the best candidate is. That's not what she said. That's not at all what she said.
Haley said, I would love the reaction from a woman in the crowd. And
I wouldn't vote for a woman, and especially,
you wouldn't vote for a woman.
She's probably menopausal. We don't need that.
Didn't even notice that first. I was waiting for the menopausal part.
Just the right person for the...
Not vote for a woman at all. Like, guys, there's no other way to say it. It's just misogynistic. If you don't want to vote for Haley because her policies suck, that's fair and all that. But if you're gonna say you're not gonna vote for a woman, period, I'm sorry, there's no other way to get around it. That's just misogyny. You're not voting for someone because of their policy. You're voting for someone based upon their gender identity. Come on, man, this is ridiculous.
Oh. When the Fox News reporter feels the need to clean up.
And by the way, this is a very common belief among conservatives in America, so I don't want to hear no excuse about it. They don't like women, especially in power.
Deep-seated misogyny.
To the point where even conservative women are misogynistic.
Massive, age gap in this country in terms of the way politics is thought about. I mean, the older the people are, you go look, don't take my word for it. There's a lot of polling on this. The older the people are, go look at their thoughts on Israel and Palestine. Right?
We
go
know
look at their
that.
thoughts on gender dynamics and religion. There's all these things. There's such a giant gap. She literally said into a microphone to millions of people, I wouldn't vote for a woman, and this particular woman is probably menopausal. I shudder at the thought of what this woman's life was like and what she was taught when she was younger by her own mom and dad. To me, this it stinks to the high heavens of indoctrination from a young age, right? A woman's place is in the kitchen. It's a caretaker, and
like Charlie fucking Kirk said to Taylor Swift, remember?
I remember that.
And that's bullshit too, because he has no excuse on this stupid Karen. He's the same age as me. He doesn't get the same excuse as she did.
Serving it to your husband. You don't make the decisions. Almost like that. You're semi-property type thing.
And that is what conservatives think of women.
I wouldn't vote for a woman, she said. You wouldn't vote for a woman? How many women are in this country? 170.
There are more women in America than men.
Some odd million women in this country. I wouldn't vote for a woman. All of them? None of them? There's not a single one? Jesus Christ. All right. But okay. I haven't even gotten to the...
It's funny you wouldn't vote for the person that we still think had the best chance to beat Biden in the election, if that's what you care about. As we've been saying for the last month or so, if you want to beat Biden, you dump Trump and support Haley. Even though she dropped out, you still have a chance. You should vote for her Nash peoples. You're making a very big mistake, I'm telling you.
The worst one. This was just the appetizer, y'all. I'm about to give you the entree. All right, you ready for this? So we got another one. This one is, I don't think this is Fox News. Was this NBC? North Carolina. We got a reporter who's going to ask this dude.
Which is crazy because she is from South Carolina, so she got a lot of votes from the Carolina areas. And she actually won, I think it was Vermont and D.C. So Haley actually didn't, she lost every other state, but she was actually pretty somewhat competitive in a lot of these states. Which I remember, I can't remember whose video it was, like, Watch Today cover it, but it didn't look good for Trump that he didn't win, like, unbelievable blowouts. Like, Biden's win, like, all of his elections by, like, 80+% and stuff like that.
Dude, his thoughts. Watch this.
What do you think of Nikky Haley? Did you ever?
But remember, that's also because the DNC has rigged, is rigging, and will rig every single election, every single primary from now until the end of time.
Reporter's going to ask this dude his thoughts. Watch this.
What do you think of Nikky Haley? Did you ever consider her?
You know, what I got to say, you don't really want to put it on.
Let me hear it.
Well, a woman's not going to be a good president. She don't have no balls to scratch. She's just going to scratch her head. All a woman's good for in my book is...
Whoa! She's got no balls to scratch. She's going to scratch her head, and that's all a woman's good for.
Wow! Nuts.
I mean, I'm not surprised, are you?
Yeah.
Taking care of the house. And, for my book is having babies and taking care of...
Yep, classic. All good a woman is having babies and taking care of the house. Yep. I'm not surprised, are you? This is a common belief.
Exactly.
That's the old thing, you know, but I'm old school.
So you never even considered...
I would dare you say that in front of my mom. Oh, boy. You're going to have to deal with a giant Karen if you say that.
Mainly because she's
female. So, I mean, females, don't take me wrong, females know what they're doing, but they still got to have a little bit of guidance.
Females know what they're doing, but they need some guidance still with a man.
I told you that first one wasn't even the worst one. This dude literally said a woman's place is in the kitchen and, like, taking care of the kids.
Yeah, that's a common conservative belief.
The first thing he said was, I don't even know if you want me to say this on this camera. And then he let it all hang out. Again, one more time. This is wild.
You know, what I got to say, you don't really want to put it on.
Let me hear it.
Well, a woman's not going to be a good president. She don't have no balls to scratch. She's just going to scratch her head. All women.
She doesn't have balls to scratch. She's going to scratch her head? Is there something about scratching of a ball sack that makes you more intelligent or fit to lead?
Well, to conservatives, yes, because men are superior.
Babies and taking care of the house, and that's the old thing, you know. But I'm old school.
I'm old school. Like, for example, I think women are inferior and basically property.
As if it's the black people are inferior.
Look, I have to admit,
and he hates interracial and interfaith couples.
Yeah, guys,
because his old school thing is being a Nazi.
Guys, I said this earlier. I'm going to say this once again. This is a very common belief with conservatives in America. This is not an isolated incident. It's very, very, very common. They don't like women, especially in power. They want them to be viewed as property. That's it. They're bad.
I'm the type of dude, I never put much stock in the idea of, like, this massive patriarchy that runs everything. You know what I mean? The idea that, like a cabal of elite, powerful men.
Yeah, that's like 2 SJW woke scolding
no women
for
allowed
America
in our club
for me.
that runs the world, right?
Go to the Middle East if you want to talk about that, because that's an actual patriarchy, like in the Middle East and all that.
It sounds kind of goofy.
Exactly.
It sounds like
not as much in America, though, in the West.
But I will admit, I massively underestimated the amount of casual, deep-seated sexism there is out there. Like, watching this,
I'm not surprised at all.
The woman saying
although I still personally say, I've been saying this for a long time, I still think America's more racist than misogynistic.
This guy's saying what she's... They're
well,
on
the
camera.
number one thing is for Americans is racism.
Yeah.
And they're saying this. So how many people casually agree with this? How many people are like, yeah.
I wonder how much of a problem this is down under with misogyny.
It's not as bad. Again, because we were colonized, we were invaded, because our original first Australians were invaded and annihilated by the existentially racist Brits. It means that racism is probably still more of an issue.
Hey, sounds like America!
It depends on what specific area, because there's some at the moment where it's more sexism than racism, but it's like we just had our voice to Parliament get annihilated because of racism.
Yeah. Wasn't that about that, like, the Aboriginal vote a few months ago?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we even covered that, too. Oh,
yeah, we did.
Yeah, that's right.
Really
That's the way it works.
painful.
Women should be in the kitchen. You know, pop out the babies. Shut the fuck up. Don't talk so much. Listen to your husband. You know, let him make all the decisions.
Would your mom
You're
go
in
full
no position to
Karen
lead.
hearing
You're
that?
me.
I know my mom would.
No, because she doesn't actually get out all that often, and is kind of just largely apolitical. Just wants to focus on her crocheting and motorsport.
Wouldn't care. Your job is just
space. I said space, crocheting, and Harry Potter.
But not going to full meltdown. Whole job is to stay home, make babies, and cook and clean and all that.
Yeah.
Oh man, my mom would go full Karen on that, and I would enjoy every moment of it. Hey, it would be nice to see her go Karen over someone else other than me for once.
It was like a 3%.
I'll enjoy all you conservatives suffer to my mom's wrath, and I'm going to enjoy every moment of it.
But they found 2 in one day on a Super Tuesday, which means, believe, what is it really? 30%?
Oh no, it's a lot more than that,
right?
No,
man,
like
that's dark.
70.
This is so dark.
Like
I can't believe
50,
people actually
60.
still think like this.
Way too many people.
That's the old thing, you know, but I'm old school.
So you never even considered her?
No.
Mainly because she's a woman.
Because she's female.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So even theoretically, if Nikki Haley had all of the policies that this guy prefers, and she's with him on 100% of things, whereas Trump's only with him on 68% of things, he's still like, well, she's a woman. I can't. Why would I do that?
Yeah, just like we covered like a month ago with Vivek. Even if he agrees with all these people on the policies, because he's Indian and Hindu, they're automatically going to say no to him.
What the relationship was
Well,
like.
they're
Between
going to
this
be
guy and his
racist
mom,
shit stains.
right?
Which they
Or
were.
that woman and
a funny thing too is, if I'm correct, I think Haley's also part Indian as well.
Yep.
I can't remember Native American or Indian,
Yes,
like
because
Vivek.
because I've heard people
Because that was an old criticism of her too. Like,
hang on.
because I remember a lot of people being like racist towards her because of that as well. But since she looks more white than Vivek, she gets away with it as easier.
Yeah.
But like
I'm taking a look here.
Like again, guys, this is just pathetic. It's just misogyny. There's
Her
like,
parents emigrated from India to Canada in 1964 after Asia received a scholarship offer from the University of British Columbia. After he received his PhD in 1969, he moved with his family to South Carolina, where he was a professor of biology at Voorhees College, a historically black institution in Denmark, South Carolina. He retired from teaching in 1998. Raj earned his master's degree in education and taught for 7 years in Bamberg Public Schools. In May 1976, she opened a popular women's clothing boutique, Exotica. Oh, I actually didn't know Exotica was involved with Haley. Okay. West Columbia. At age 12, Nikki Randhawa began helping with bookkeeping at the clothing shop. In 1993, the Randhawans opened the Gentleman's Quarters, a male counterpart to Exotica. The stores closed in 2008 upon Raj's retirement from merchandising.
so she was Indian, right?
Her parents are, yes.
Yeah.
Her dad
Immigrant
and her
Sikh
mom.
parents, yes.
Like what?
From
What went on?
Amritsar, Punjab, India. I apologize if I butchered this pronunciation.
Yeah, Punjab's correct from Vicky too.
You think in such a warped ass way.
I mean, females, don't take me wrong, females know what they're doing, but they still got to have a little bit of guidance. Trump would be the one to guide her through the what do you think?
They still got to have a little bit of guidance. Whereas Trump, he needs no guidance.
Really? Really,
Figured
buddy?
out that guy.
Really?
The guy who has to pay over $400 million.
You really think Trump needs no guidance whatsoever after all the bullshit he's done to himself? You really think he needs no guidance? There's one person between those two. There's obviously there's only one person that's actually intelligent and actually knows what they're doing in the Republican primary, and that's Haley, even though she's a piece of shit herself.
17 different kinds of fraud. Real intelligent guy who doesn't need any guidance whatsoever. Oh, man. Yeah, man, what a gap there is between what I thought people thought and how they actually think.
And Kyle, I don't even know about that gap, that age gap exists, because remember, Charlie Kirk exists. And we saw their misogynistic meltdown to Taylor Swift that still gets me angry all these months later.
Then again, I thought we're at the place where nobody would be dumb enough to say something like this in public. Right? We got two of them
I was
in one day on a Super Tuesday, which leads me to believe how many actually think like this. It's got to be a decent number, right? It's got to be a decent number. Hey, y'all, do me a favor.
So, yeah, we got to say about that. Once again, people, in the Republican primary dismissing Haley, not because of her policies, but because she's a woman.
But because she's a woman. Yep, as usual.
Hey guys, if you want to blow your chances to potentially have a better chance to beat Biden, go right ahead, but can you actually think of a valid reason, like we just don't agree with her, not because, oh, she's a woman? Same with Vivek.
Yeah.
We don't like it because of his policies, but no, we hate him because he's Hindu and Indian and all that. You guys are clowns.
He's not white. It's because he's not white and he's not a scumfuck.
If you all are like these two people, you're just misogynistic. Just like the people that are against Vivek that we covered recently are just racist.
Yep.
There's no way around it.
Yep.
And you guys are the common denominator of Republicans and conservatives in America. And that's why you guys suck. And that's why you keep losing. And hopefully we'll keep losing. And if you guys lose to Dementia Joe in November, you can blame Trump with his big mouth and you guys being idiots by not choosing someone who's better. I like Haley. Oh my God.
And don't forget also, you can forget these are basically two brain dead, dark side of the force influenced pieces of shit. One's a full blown Nazi, the other's like kind of a collaborator, I guess you could say, or at least an enabler of Nazis.
Careful!
So it's like
careful! Dumb leftists will somehow have a meltdown about that.
Oh, I know second thought absolutely would.
And speaking of second thought, that's who's next.
Yeah.
And we've covered second thought before his videos, and my view of him has really tanked over the last like half year or so because
he's a tanky.
And he defends the Russo-Ukraine war, China against.
Oh
my God! Did you ever see his authoritarian video that Walsh covered where he?
Yes, I have.
Oh no! Where he actually said China. He said China's cops didn't kill a single person in China. Where No. China's cops are definitely killing people. They probably kill more people than American cops do. Like, no. Looks like the propaganda. No. And of course, fervently defending like Hamas and all that, which is not based. Even if we are pro-Palestinian, there's gotta be limits to that and such. But like, yeah, his views are really bad.
As I said, I stand with the civilians on both sides. I stand against Hamas and the IDF and Islamic Jihad and all the other
and the Zionist piece of shit too.
Yep.
And the settlers.
And all the other Israeli other Zionists.
And the settlers. All those people are scum. But anyways.
They're all subhuman.
So anyways, he posted a video today, which was literally 2 hours ago when I first saw this. And I figured, you know what? Since with the title and all, I figured, let's give it a check, see if it's bad on it. So the video is, let me look it up again. It is the most dangerous thing in the Western Hemisphere. American liberals. Now, of course, like I have like a mixed thing on that. Like on the one hand, no, it's American conservatives that are a bigger threat, not liberals. But seeing his content, I thought maybe he could actually put up a coherent thought on it, maybe be like, maybe somewhat of a good point. Because, like I said, we're not on good terms with him now lately over the last 6 months, but maybe he can redeem himself a little bit to us. So let's see how American liberals are the most dangerous thing in the Western Hemisphere. I like to see this.
This episode and others like it are brought to you by the generous support of my patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to help support this channel, join our growing Discord server, and get early access to every video, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/secondthought.
First, I must confess that over the past few years I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white citizens' counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom.
That white person that you see calling himself a liberal is the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere. He's the most deceitful. He's like a fox. And a fox is always more dangerous in the forest than the wolf. You can see the wolf coming. You know what he's up to.
Really gonna put AOC and Bernie on this thing? AOC's not even white.
That even though you
Caffles?
think he's smart,
Walsh?
for a friend.
Wow.
Look, I know Walsh is. We've covered before. We're not really good fans of Walsh, but I don't know if I would put him necessarily on. He's not even probably a liberal. Keffels, that seems a little odd and all that. That seems maybe some remember
the second thoughts in the community that worked with Nazis and Kiwi farms to try and get Keffels murdered.
I'm sure he's probably butthurt because Walsh made fun of his authoritarianism video, which, God, second part, that was just a very bad video. like when you're defending China's cops, just like Walsh, I bust out laughing too. He did. That was so bad. Oh my God. And you saw it too, which was hilarious. Oh my gosh. I'm surprised Dylan Burns isn't on there.
I don't know. He probably thinks Dylan Burns is like a Nazi or something.
Okay. Or a ruthless liberal, like a song called him.
Yeah.
Let's go. Over the past 5 months, just about everyone I know has come to the same conclusion. Dyed-in-the-wool liberals are as much the enemy of normal, decent people as conservatives are. And when I say liberal, I don't mean your average Joe who likes Harry Potter and Marvel movies and doesn't really think about politics outside of election years.
Will you shut up, man?
I mean the people who love Harry Potter and Marvel movies and also go out of their way to scold Palestinians for resisting their own extermination. People who demand you condemn Hamas while refusing to acknowledge that history didn't begin on October 7th. People who...
you don't do the opposite end either. You made
exactly. That's what I was about to say.
See, the difference is between these guys and like Second Thought and us is we condemned what Israel has done for years to the Palestinians, but we also condemned what happened on October 7th, the second deadliest terrorist attack in the world behind just 9/11. For crying out loud, absolutely unacceptable what happened to them. And Hamas is just going to help give Israel the justification to kill off and genocide all the Palestinians, which is also evil what Israel's doing. We've been covering aggressively for the last months or so. But see, we're both sides on this. We condemn both of these pieces of shit. You guys,
both sides.
You guys only criticize one side, the genocidal Israelis.
Split their time
and they
evenly
and some of them, remember, do that in ways that border, if not float straight into anti-Semitism.
I hate to use that because I've seen that because we get accused of being anti-Semitic all the time, but unfortunately they really kind of do. It really makes it hard for us to try and have to defend us because they're so fucking stupid.
Watching Hamilton and calling anyone who criticizes Joe Biden a Russian troll or a Chinese spy.
Oh yeah! Oh my God! I got called out one of Boss's videos recently, even though I'm voting for that senile old man, which is hilarious.
But just so we're on the same page before we go any further, let me be extra clear. Liberalism is the default ideology in the imperial core. The average person ends up with a liberal perspective by osmosis.
I don't know about
There's a pipeline from simply existing in the empire to becoming a rabid servant of the empire. And if you feel like this is an attack on you personally, please don't feel that way. Everyone should be.
I mean, we're social democrats pretty much, so that wouldn't offend us.
That's a good sign you may have been indoctrinated into a dangerous ideology. But that's what this video is about. I'm going to give you just a little bit of evidence that Western liberals are a tremendous force for evil. And contrary to what they want you to believe, they absolutely do not care about truth, justice, peace, or progress. Let's start with the civil rights era. A lot of Americans today erroneously believe that when Dr. King came onto the scene, he magically opened everyone's eyes and ended racism. Sure, things were bad back then, but his words were so moving that everyone put down their pitchforks and agreed that we were all equal. And of course, the white liberals were marching hand in hand with black Americans to forge a path to a brighter future.
They were?
While MLK did have a profound way with words, and there were indeed a number of white Americans who marched for equal rights, this simplified view of the civil rights era is exceptionally misleading. Martin Luther King is one of the most co-opted figures in modern history. Everyone tries to claim him for their particular set of beliefs.
Conservatives the last few years, decades, remember?
Yes, they love doing that.
Except Charlie Kirk. Now Charlie Kirk's saying, no, MLK was evil and all that recently, if you haven't seen. So maybe they're finally going to abandon him.
Because remember, he wants to reinstitute slavery.
Because remember, guys, Charlie Kirk is racist, as we covered some time ago,
Racist,
where he doesn't think black pilots are trustable.
Beliefs. I made a whole video about how history whitewashes black radicals. But the thing about these people waxing poetic about how great King was is that 90% of the time, they would have hated the man had they lived in the same era. Think about your family members today and how they reacted to the Black Lives Matter rallies and protests. If they're anything like...
I don't have a problem with BLM. And most liberals don't have a problem with BLM. And like 93% of the BLM protests in 2020 when George Floyd was killed was peaceful.
My family, you probably heard some pretty ignorant, hateful statements. The same exact thing happened in Dr. King's time. Police brutality, rampant racism, and constant attempts to misconstrue what the movement was really about. The thing that always concretizes that fact for me is this comic, by the white moderate cartoonist Charles Brooks. King talking to a reporter with the city destroyed in the background and some white people lying on the ground, and King saying, "I plan to lead another non-violent march tomorrow." This is exactly what we see today. Liberals get uncomfortable, and suddenly they're not for equal rights anymore.
No, I'm pretty sure this is mostly conservatives that do stuff like this.
Yeah.
Like,
but remember though that
I don't recall liberals.
Thought inflates liberals and conservatives. Remember?
Because I don't recall liberals doing this stuff during the George Floyd protests 4 years ago. Do you? I only remember conservatives saying cities are being burnt down and all that. Liberals were the ones defending them, by and large.
Or more accurately, they still say they are, but they just have some concerns about optics. That's not.
Well, yeah, optics. Yeah, this one thing, optics are very, very, very important. Like,
yes, and
even though
this is something that tankies ignore. I swear, they ignore on purpose.
Post a protest.
They deliberately ignore it.
Yeah, as we covered too over the last few years. With, like, the defund the police movement and all that. Like, while we support your policies, you gotta do it in a way that works.
Everyone just protest peacefully. Why? So you can ignore it? The entire point of protest is to be disruptive. But
you gotta do it in ways that
disruptive, but not disruptive, yes, but destructive, no.
Like,
here's what I'm sure he probably wants. It's what I'm sure he's probably conflating disruption with destruction.
Like, here's a peaceful
Remember, I saw at least one conservative who was like, BLM was planning to burn the entire country to the ground.
Because that's what conservatives believe, because they're retarded.
Even if we put that aside, no one wants to have to protest. They want things to change with as little friction as possible. But that's just not how things work when the oppressor class likes their position, and that position is dependent upon subjugating another class. It's like Castro said during the Cuban Revolution. The people did not choose the path of armed struggle. It was the path that was forced upon them. Same with Palestine. The number of tweets I've seen from liberals saying, "I don't understand why they can't just peacefully protest," is insane. And
you can. Like, that is an option. You can do that, and it would look optically better.
Every single time, someone claps back with a different instance of Palestinians peacefully organizing and being killed all the same.
Yeah, but if you're peacefully protesting and you're killed with it, that makes Israel look bad. Then we can use it as ammo to go after them, because that government is evil.
By the time King penned his letter from Birmingham jail, which you heard some of at the beginning of this video, he had become disenchanted with white northern liberals, who had earlier in his career been his greatest source of white support. But when King started talking about systemic issues that intersected with racism, such as economic inequality, these liberals started to squirm. The comfortable whites who looked down on the southern yokels for their ignorance and racism were now in the hot seat themselves. They benefited from a two-tiered society in which liberal elites were at the top. And so the complaint about optics was born. Look, Dr. King, we support your ideals, but the way you're protesting just isn't okay.
See, this is what I mean. This is why I can't ally myself with these people.
The way
because they dismiss the idea of optics and always go for the optically bad.
Like Harry, remember?
Yep, because Harry's one of these Stalinists as well.
They support
He's one of those who wants things like a unipolar world under China.
But as soon as it crosses into the realm of the material, they become no different than conservatives. If violent protest is illegal, and nonviolent protest gets your liberal supposed supporters to condemn your movement,
no. If you're peaceful, liberals will support you. Just like BLM shows it.
What course do you have to affect change? Yeah. There's a reason imperial core countries are actively trying to criminalize various forms of protest. They have a vested interest in things remaining the same.
That's because they've hated freedom and always hated it.
Foray said in his 1969 book, The Pitfalls of Liberalism, what a liberal really wants is to bring about change which will not in any way endanger his position. That is, of course, impossible when we're talking about fixing the systemic problems of racism, imperialism, and economic inequality. According to a
I don't think liberals care about their position like that. I don't think that's the
66
case.
Harris poll.
That's like a
King's
conservative
favorable
thing.
rating among white Americans was just 27%. Compare that to 95% today. That's how liberals operate. They oppose any attempts at emancipation while they're happening, then pretend they were always on the side of the righteous when...
Well, back then America was more racist in the 60s than now. Even a lot of liberals would be racist back then, so that's a big reason why. And two, I don't think MLK had any bad optics and all that. But of course, it was a very common belief a lot of people had back then. Just like how conservatives have an incorrect view about BLM being bad optics and all that.
When they have the benefit of history books telling them who the good guys were. There's a great tweet that really sums up this liberal tendency. A liberal is someone who opposes every war except the current war, and supports all civil rights movements except the one going on right now. Now,
they support unjust wars, like the Iraq War, which was
Iraq
a big...
and Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Iraq definitely, and Afghanistan once it got past the initial point.
Yeah, but they're against wars that were unjust, like the Iraq War. But likewise, we are, even though wouldn't call myself a liberal, do support helping Ukraine defend themselves against a Nazi Russia, because that's the unjust war from that angle instead, where they are aggressed upon, whereas we in Iraq were the aggressors. That's the difference. But of course, we know you don't realize the distinction between offensive and defensive wars. We already know that.
He doesn't care
because America bad. Okay.
Critical step further and correctly labeled them an enemy of genuine progress and liberation. The conservatives are wolves. You know what they're up to. They're evil and they're honest. Not because they care about being honest, but because they're not afraid to wield power when they have it. The liberal is a fox, less outwardly threatening, even seemingly approachable, but still a predator. A conservative will usually be open about their racism and how they need to keep the dirty foreigners out. Whereas a liberal will say things like, I see you, I hear you, hate has no place here. And then they'll run campaign ads about how conservatives are failing to secure the southern border. Biden hasn't stopped building Trump's wall. That should tell you everything you need to know about the liberal...
But is Biden really a liberal? Because I don't think that. I don't know if I would say he's even a liberal.
Approach to immigration. Pretend you're deeply concerned, and then do the same thing the conservatives are doing.
That is one of Biden's big problems. He is right-wing on immigration, which conservatives fervently deny when it's been debunked over and over and over again.
We've seen a handful of the more liberal Democrats speak out against what Israel is doing, which is no small feat for a politician in the United States. But then, when push comes to shove, they do the evil thing anyway. As I'm writing this script, every single Senate Democrat just voted to continue funding the genocide in Gaza.
Context, though, that thing also had funding to support Ukraine, which is very, very, very important to the Democrats. And like I said myself before, I don't want to give money to Israel, period. I want them to get nothing. Nothing. But this thing would give aid to Ukraine, which is very, 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 very vital to me. So it's like one thing I really don't want, but one thing I really, 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 really do want. So that's why, as much as I hate to say it, I might vote yes on this because Ukraine getting aid is more important to me than Israel getting aid. That's why I would like to. That's why it should be separate. Ukraine gets aid. Have a bill to give Ukraine aid, which I would vote yes for, and then do a bill for Israel to get aid, which I would vote no on. That way, don't have to make an evil choice on that.
Every single one. It's like the meme. The people on the receiving end of US militarism don't care whether the people who sent the bombs are deeply concerned about it. They're still sending the bombs. Socialist.
So yeah, context that must be added on. But of course, you're an anti-war American Diabolist, so you don't care about context.
I tend to joke about Democrats just being Republicans with a rainbow flag painted on their bombers. But it's
is because he's actually pro-war, but it's only pro when Russia and China do
Absolutely true. The liberals' only objection to imperialism and global domination is on aesthetic grounds. They may say they're cool with gay people, but they're still going to turn the rest of the world to glass if it means maintaining our hegemony.
Oh,
a good example of this meaningless liberal pandering is when...
Oh my God. We are not going to use the fucking Death Star on Earth, you fucking imbecile.
Pharrell recently sent Trump a cease and desist to stop Trump from using songs at rallies. And then he turned around and performed at a fundraising gala for the IDF. The people who've killed 11,000 children in the past few months, who have targeted doctors saving injured people, journalists trying to show the world what's happening, the people who blindfolded a man, told him to run, and then sniped him in the back of the head.
Yes,
celebrities
you know
being
what?
useless.
Hamas and Islamic Jihad are evil too.
Is one thing. But when you have a liberal
They feed into
world
each other to
leader,
make everything
that's when
worse.
things get really dangerous.
Yeah.
Take Trudeau, for example. In response to one of the many ongoing protests for Palestine in Canada, on February 13th, he posted the following on Twitter. The demonstration at Mount Sinai Hospital yesterday was reprehensible. Hospitals are places for treatment and care, not protest and intimidation. I strongly condemn this display of anti-Semitism. In Toronto and across Canada, we stand with Jewish communities against this hate.
First off, it's not anti-Semitic to criticize Israel, so that's where Trudeau's a dipshit.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm telling you guys, it does look bad if you do a protest at a, like, Jewish hospital. It's gonna look bad.
Yeah.
Like, why can't you go after, like, where's this at? I know it's in Canada, but I don't know if... Oh, in Toronto, okay. Maybe there's, like, a embassy in Israel there? Why don't you go after that? That would make sense, because you're going after Israel, not Judaism and all that. Like, it just looks bad. Focus on things that look good, not look bad. But yeah, Trudeau's a fucking idiot, but I'm not surprised.
This is insane.
Well,
If you've been
Trudeau's
online
a
at all...
neoliberal, he's a neoliberal shithead, so of course he's allied to Nazis.
In the last 5 months, you'll know where I'm going with this. Justin Trudeau, liberal darling, has supported to the hilt the Israeli apartheid regime, which has bombed every single hospital in Gaza out of operation. Not only that, these monsters also dressed as doctors and nurses and infiltrated a hospital to shoot and terrorize the patients and heroic staff inside.
To
the liberal, walking outside a hospital and demanding justice is a bridge too far.
Even if it's not mentioned by mainstream media, we hear it all the time.
But
we know
butchering
what's
an
going
entire
on.
population because it serves the interests of capital is perfectly acceptable. The justification for statements like Trudeau's has always been opposing anti-Semitism. That obviously doesn't work anymore.
But of
It's an
course
absurd claim to make that
they're actually supporting Zion-Nazism.
criticizing a
because of BB.
genocidal apartheid regime is anti-Semitic. And it's become even more clearly absurd now that we've seen hundreds of thousands of Jewish people around the world stand up against Israel's ethnic cleansing campaign and say...
Which mainstream media always refuses to acknowledge.
Of course, because
that would show that it's not anti-Semitism, dumbasses.
Resent us.
It's because they're the anti-Semitic ones, actually, because they're conflating Judaism with Zionism and Zion-Nazism.
All you have to do is look at footage from within Israel itself. Jews are brutalized by the fascist police for daring to speak out against the regime. The anti-Semitism charge obviously doesn't work anymore. So the liberals have fallen back on what they do best, weaponizing vague feelings. The main objection to rallies for Palestine now is that it makes people feel uncomfortable or unsafe on college campuses in the West.
Revolutionary Blackout Network.
It's been making the rounds online.
We want him dead.
Aside from the fact that those are the most obvious
Cry more, Karen, that there's a pro-Palestinian demonstration. Go fuck off.
tears you've ever seen, I want you to think about the absurdity
Haven't
of
you
this
got a
display.
Palestinian
Claiming
person
to
on
feel
campus
unsafe
to
in your
harass her
insular
with the
little
crime of
university
existing?
versus this.
مين بدك مين بدك؟ طيب انت ايش؟ اخويا ابو نصر كمان
That's what unsafe looks like. You feel uncomfortable? Think about how uncomfortable it is to have no food or clean water, no shelter, no hygiene products.
Yeah,
your
as we
family
keep telling you
killed,
idiots
the places
about.
You've been told
As
will
you
be
keep
safe,
supporting
purposefully
the
targeted
genocide of
and spawning bombs.
Palestinians.
Liberals have no right to cry crocodile tears and pretend to feel unsafe. Of course, they'll still do it, and sometimes it will work.
I wouldn't say it's necessarily liberals that are like that, though. That's probably more like just stupid Zionists and stuff like that. That are offended by Palestinian rights.
Weapons as dangerous as
one stupid Karen at university doesn't mean all liberalism.
a white woman's tears.
Yeah, and
As
there's
minorities
something
have learned the hard
else
way.
I hate about these tanky types is that if it's anyone outside the their bubble, they just conflate that. They not only do they conflate them with the worst of the worst, but they're also like one person is equal to all of them. It's exactly the same shit as the all LGBT people with child rapists.
Way throughout history.
That the
Enough
far
pretend
right
fear
use.
and they get what they want. In this case, the criminalizing of solidarity with the people currently being exterminated. I made a tweet the other day that said, "One thing that's been bothering me recently is that I have no power to make liberals care. I can say, I will never again speak to someone who still supports Israel, but what good is that? The hate and powerlessness I feel is something I haven't experienced before." I had one commenter respond with something.
I mean, maybe it's for other reasons why you're getting hate? Like from us? Because you're a tanky?
I think is important to share.
Yep, because
this is
you're
how
a Stalinist
colonized
who
people have felt
worshipped
forever.
Stalin
Liberals
and
act like they care,
loved
but they don't. They
mass
really,
slaughter that
really
he
don't.
did,
And their fake
because
performative
it's the
caring
cost of
actually
doing
makes it
business.
way worse. At least right-wingers are honest. That's a great point. And it echoes what Malcolm X said half a century ago. Liberals are no better than conservatives. They're often even more bloodthirsty, as we've seen with their recent behavior.
Yeah, sure. Liberals are more violent, bloodthirsty than conservatives. Yeah.
How many fucking terrorist attacks have there been by the far right in the last 10 years? Hundreds.
How many left wing? None.
Empire from a conservative one
How many
is
murders?
that the liberal will
One
lie through their
murder
teeth to
from a
make it
lefty.
seem like they're on your side.
And there were like
At least when
hundreds and hundreds. Oh, and don't forget that Islamic terrorism as well is also far right.
Yep.
So if you want to go far right, what is it? It's like, I think I saw it was like several hundred people murdered by right wingers, and even if and that includes like Islamic extremists and incels. Do you want to take a wild guess as to how many, and this includes black nationalists as well, how many people have died for any politically left-wing thing since 9/11?
Less than one?
Oh, no, it's a bit higher than that. But they remember, like, all bar one is because of black nationalists.
But let's just...
13.
Yep.
13. That's it. Versus several hundred. By the way, the Liberals, they're like, what are they on? Like, I genuinely don't think they're, like, at least not directly, they're not on any. Like, there might be a few. We could, if we dumbed it down a bit, we could probably find a few. Probably maybe a few murders of Palestinians by pro-Israel libs, but that'll be about it.
Yep, but hey, liberals are bad as conservatives, apparently. Okay.
Conservative says they want you dead. You
Remember
can believe it.
Walsh's video? Liberals are not the same as Republicans, for fuck's sake. Because that's the thing. Second thought thinks that liberals and Republicans are the same, basically.
It depends on the issue.
Yeah.
When it comes to this, I don't really think they're compatible in this way.
And brace for impact. With a liberal, you have to be a lot more vigilant. Conservatives don't care if they have the moral high ground. They want what they want, and they don't care how you feel about it. A liberal will twist themselves into knots trying to convince you, and often themselves, that they are the moral arbiter of modern politics. Even the liberals who are critical of Joe Biden and the wider West's enabling of this genocide often speak out in a way that ends up reinforcing belief in liberalism. Take the recent drama surrounding Jon Stewart. He said some common sense stuff about Biden and really pissed off the vote blue no matter who crowd.
Oh yeah, I honestly almost considered doing this because there is also another video because Jon Stewart returned to Daily Show recently. He did a really awesome video making fun of Netanyahu, which was awesome.
Yeah, he went after everyone.
Yeah, because in that video,
remember, it's awesome.
Yep.
From one of the parts I've seen.
Because in the Israel video, he pointed out like all the times that. Every time Russia did a war crime, everyone in the mainstream media would call Russia war crime, Russia war crime, Russia war crime. But when Israel did something bad, they'd be like, well, it's justified, and he pointed out how stupid their excuses was, and he got people boiling mad about that. So thank you, Stuart, on that one. But when he first came back on the Daily Show, he did a video on how bad both Biden and Trump are, and that they're old fucks that really shouldn't be running. Oh my God, the idiot liberals on Twitter had a complete Karen meltdown about it, and saying that Biden was worse than Trump or some regard. He didn't, and all that. He was just making fun of him for being old, out of touch men.
Criticisms also really resonated with the masses of more casual liberals.
I would say though, I would still say that's not necessarily liberalism or liberals in America. That's more like just blue MAGA, which there is a sect of blue MAGAs we call like liberals are like so anti-Trump that any criticism of people that could like beat Trump like Biden did, they have a meltdown over it. Like the majority of liberals do think Biden is too old, he's out of touch, and he really shouldn't run. But they're gonna sell with him anyway if he's the only option to beat Trump.
Liberals in the Imperial Court.
Like, the blue MAGA are the people that are going to fervently defend Biden no matter what. Just, like, I hope, like, you guys, like, second thought, you're going to, like, criticize Biden no matter what. You're both the exact same thing. Ooh! You guys are the horseshoe theory. Oh, do you think they're going to get mad for that one?
Concerns of people starting to feel cognitive dissonance about their support of genocide, and then to steer them back into the fold of the Democratic Party. Yeah, Biden may be too old for the job, but we'll do better next time. The most important thing is keeping Trump out of the White House.
I mean, that is a view a lot of liberals do have. But, like, the majority of liberals are going to be like, yeah, Biden's not that good. And this also applies to me, too, because I am going to vote for him. I'm going to be more open. He sucks, and that is really evil what he's doing in Hamas-Israel war. But Trump is, for whoever person it is bad enough, is so bad that they're going to vote for him, like me, who's going to vote for the old man because Trump said he would let Russia invade NATO if they didn't pay up, and that's going to risk World War III, and I just can't let that go by without saying
things would be so much worse under a Republican, believe me. Never mind, of course, that things are only this bad because Biden, liberal champion of peace and freedom, has personally refused to call off his attack dog, and has instead spent...
But Joe Biden has turned out to be America's most pro-Israeli president ever. I actually don't agree with that. Trump was more pro-Israel. Yeah, I don't agree with this at all. If anything, probably don't know, Biden and Netanyahu don't actually like each other.
Oh yeah, they hate each other.
Yeah,
they hate each other.
And Biden, although it's not enough, he has tried to get Israel to like, hey, could you like chill out with your genocide with Israel a bit? It's not going far enough, but he's at least doing something. Whereas Trump, he doesn't give a shit. He would Trump would probably actively bomb genocide the Palestinians too. So like, yeah, this time Markle is crap.
I can see Trump dropping a nuke on Palestine, like putting a nuclear bomb in like in the place where there's like 1 million sheltering Palestinians and just go kaboom.
Yep. Like, no, I don't buy his time, Markle. Biden is the most pro-Israeli president ever. That's crap.
Billions of dollars of your tax money to fund the massacre of tens of thousands of men, women, and children.
But see, we just provide nuance to Biden. That for is a bad thing, don't you know?
Yeah, for all of them.
Whose only crime is trying to prevent the slow-rolling erratic...
No nuances allowed.
Yeah,
Biden bad.
Like, that's...
Biden diabolism.
Yep, that's what I've noticed, too, over the last, like, 6 months with the left and all that. Like, we remember, like, Chang and all those clowns. I think Biden is never going to win ever, no matter what. And then you have idiots like Walsh and Packman that defend Biden at all costs and all that. There needs to be nuance, but no one can do that. It's really irritating.
It is.
Of their people.
Even fucking, like, I'm not even kidding you. Sam Cedar seems to be the most persistent one, consistent one. Even Kyle's getting a bit too... Kyle
anti-Biden.
Yeah.
Because remember back like in the fall before 10/7, people were saying that he was being pro-Biden now. Remember that?
Yeah,
that was like flipped.
That's almost gone too far the other way.
Yep.
And their history. I could go on like this, or hell, I could just leave the video running and play the hundreds of hours of footage showing what Western liberals are enabling in Gaza. Children.
I mean, we already know about this. We don't need to know any more about it.
A man so stricken with grief that he loses consciousness after being told his entire family has been killed.
A beautiful little girl, my daughter's age, standing alone in the cold, waiting for parents who will never come back. But I know that footage will not soften the liberal heart. If they've made it this far and not changed their mind, they are irredeemable, and I will not waste any more of my time trying to win over my enemy. And for those who think
they're
I'm being
not
overly
really your
harsh
enemy
and that
either
liberals are
on this
annoying, but
issue.
not really all that dangerous.
Like, even most liberals, like, a lot of the Democrats are being more pro-Palestinian lately, if according to the polls and all that. They would be against what's happened to Palestinians. But a lot of them are also against what Hamas did, too, and you guys don't accurately counter that, whereas we could.
Yeah. I'll cite just one more historical fact. Every time liberals have been given the choice between socialism and fascism, they have sided with fascism. And when I say they've sided with fascism, that's actually a little misleading. Yes, normal liberals, the individuals, will always pick a well-dressed white fascist over a scary urban communist. But liberals as a political organism don't really choose to side with fascism as much as they devolve into it. Fascism is rooted in the same Western mythology as liberalism.
This is getting like dumb leftists that liberals are fascists.
Of course. Yeah, but remember, he's one of those, one of those Stalinist POSs. So,
look, like, I agree that a lot of liberals in America are not going to be like pro like socialism and all that, but I don't think they're going to go the other way here, like being like pro fascism. They're gonna try to be like liberals, like in between and all that.
They're not going to try and be Nazis, so...
In terms of peace and prosperity, liberalism has all the frills and niceties normal people would expect from a first world country. As soon as the economic base falters, as soon as the lines start to go down, the mask comes off. It's often said that fascism is capitalism in decay. And if there's one thing we've seen with the United States since the Reagan years, it's that capitalism is on the decline.
I don't know about that. It's not good, though, and it's helping fascist Republicans and all that. And, of course, liberals are ineffective at trying to stop them, and that's why we've said about Biden before. He's a fascist enabler. He and most of the Democrats aren't fascists, but they're so weak and so ineffective because they're not progressives. They help fascists get into power. And that's why I keep pointing out to people. And that triggers, like, Walsh and other idiots on the left very much that I say, like, Biden's a fascist enabler. But it's just the reality of it.
There's a reason we're always at war. Why our civil liberties are being curtailed under conservative...
This is the guy who... He would actually probably say that that us supporting Ukraine means we're at war with Russia and all that, remember? Yeah. America, we need to get out of, like, oh my god, like, all the stuff I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Get out of Syria... We are out of Iraq, but not, like, fully. We have, like, advisors and troops there and all that. And, of course, Iraq doesn't even really want us there, so we probably should leave. Hey, Biden got us out of Afghanistan, which is still one of the best things he did, but are you going to give him praise for it? No. Like, there's so many stuff that American involvement needs to stop. But, of course, there are things that America be involved with helps, but you're not going to acknowledge that.
And liberal leaders alike. Why Joe Biden is holding twice as many immigrants in cages as Trump was at the end of his term.
That's one thing Biden's very bad at.
We're backing Israel to the very last Palestinian.
Yep, that's another thing Biden's very bad at.
When capital has to circle the wagons to maintain its dominance, its rhetoric and actions start to look a lot like fascism. The reason for this is simple. Fascism is seen as a solution to an economic problem, just as socialism is. But the difference is that fascism does not threaten the primacy of capital, or the comfortable position of the white liberal.
Well, it doesn't affect capitalism because it is pro-capitalism. I don't like the idea of it saying that liberals are okay with fascism, because I don't think that's why fascists kill liberals soon afterwards.
Economic hardship creates conditions where bitterness, distrust, and desperation can thrive, making the masses an easy target for charismatic and bombastic fascists. I'll end with a gentle warning for new socialists. People who understand that imperialism is wrong, but who may still harbor some liberal ideology from their upbringing. There's this pervasive belief that if you just show people enough data that something is bad, we'll reach a critical mass of collective outrage, and then suddenly, through legal and government-approved means, we'll be able to stop the bad thing.
That does happen, though.
That's just not how the real world works. That's become abundantly clear in the last 5 months. Bit by bit, our rights to protest, to assemble, to speak out, are being taken away. The Palestinian people have tried peaceful protest for years. They've tried appealing to international bodies. They've tried everything. They are well within their rights to resist their executioners by whatever means they deem appropriate.
But when you go too far in the other direction, you're gonna lose support, though. Just like with Ukraine. Like if Ukraine all of a sudden started like massacring like Russian civilians, guess what? They're gonna lose major support even from me, because that's too far in the other direction. You can't become what Russia's becoming.
No amount of liberal hand-wringing and phony moral objections will change that fact.
But if you want the support, you're gonna have to play the optics game.
You don't get freedom peacefully. Freedom is never safeguarded peacefully. Anyone who is depriving you of freedom isn't deserving of a peaceful approach by the ones who are being deprived of their freedom.
I mean, they don't deserve it, true, but if you do something bad, then you might have to deal with the consequences of it.
Years, I found myself thinking, surely not these liberals. Surely this friend or this educated person or this family member will be different. And they disappoint every single time. At some point, all decent people have to realize that liberals are as much the enemy as conservatives. They may weaponize
No.
They may try to trick you into thinking they care. No, they're not. But it's a lie. The Western liberal position on Palestine should be the final nail in the coffin of liberal...
But Western liberals are on the Palestinian side, buddy. So you're saying you're against those people that support you?
Legitimacy. And I know it's not my job.
Well, apparently, of course he is, because he thinks liberals are the same as Republicans, remember?
Into socialist ideas. But sometimes you just have to tell it like it is. Malcolm X was right. Liberals are the most dangerous thing in the Western Hemisphere.
I don't think Malcolm X ever said that, and also, I think that's a bunch of cap. Alright, so I think the video is done. So yeah, what do you have to say about his new video on this?
It's not great.
Yeah, I'm not really buying it. I mean, there are some things on it that are true, but I don't think I would buy the premise that liberals were as bad as conservatives, especially on the Hamas-Israeli war. I was not convinced at all. What about you?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
Like second thought, you got a lot more work to do and all that. We've covered you quite a lot on the show. Can you? Oh my God. I wonder if we should hurt our brains and cover like his authoritarian view and all like that stuff. Oh my God! Oh man! Oh, I want to laugh. I want to laugh so hard about the China cops one again. That was so hilarious.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting. All that. We'll see about that. So I guess now on to the next topic.
All right. We have our last one. Sweden joins NATO. Good job, Putler.
Yep. So yesterday, Sweden, after 2 years of trying, has joined NATO. We covered this last April when Finland joined NATO, and thanks to Erdogan and Orban being complete fascist cunts trying to stop those two, they finally failed, and Sweden finally joined NATO, as that is now nation number 2 that was a neutral country that joined NATO thanks to Putler and all that. And while I'm not necessarily thrilled about that, because I'm still not pro like NATO expansion, but I have to point this out, just like I did with Finland. Remember, guys, the stated reason that Putler invaded Ukraine was to stop NATO expansion. And guess what's happened since? 2 neutral countries for 70 to 200 years have now joined NATO.
Yep.
His actions have led to NATO expansion. And not only that, you also look at Ukraine. Just like this, Ukraine, Finland, and Sweden have one thing in common. Before Russia started their shit back in like 2014, both of them were anti-join NATO. Hell, Ukraine was actively anti-NATO and even anti-America. They were pro-Russian at the time. But once
they were.
Yep, but once Russia invaded and annexed Crimea, that view changed. Then they became pro-NATO, and that saw out their main goal was to join NATO. And then, of course, after all that, for the next 8 years, Sweden and Finland still were against joining NATO, but they were more agreeable to that idea than they were before, but still anti-join NATO. But
and then the full invasion happened.
Yep, and after that,
as Putler attempted to
kill Ukrainians,
Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia.
Now Sweden and Finland were pro-join NATO. I actually even looked at the polls on Wikipedia for Sweden and NATO's relationship. It showed, like, before the war, Sweden was, like, 40% against joining NATO. Now it's, like, immediately after war, now it's 50% in favor of it. Like a 90% swing.
Nice.
So, yeah, guys. So, to me, once again, this proves that, because we bought the argument somewhat before the Russia-Ukraine war broke out, but the reality is, it wasn't about NATO expansion.
Yeah, it was about Hitler wanting to reclaim the lands of the Soviet Union with a politics of the Russian Empire.
Russianism is Russia and fascism together, and all that. Like, that's the real reality of it. If the ultimate goal was to stop NATO expansion, then he failed spectacularly because 2 more countries that were neutral for a long time joined NATO, especially one that's on Russia's border that doubled the length of the NATO-Russian border. And, of course, Ukraine, I'm sure once the war ends, depending on what happens, I'm sure they're going to try and join NATO. I'm sure NATO would probably quickly bring them on once the war is over and such. Like, the expansion, like, the reason for the war happening is not the case. It's not the case whatsoever. The reality is that the war is about Russianism. Russia and fascism, because they're a Nazi state. And they're trying to take over everything part of the former Russian Empire. Which, hey, by the way, too, like we brought up, like, the Baltic, Central Asia, the Caucasus and all that. There's actually another country that used to be part of the Russian Empire that you don't probably know about. You know who that is?
Who?
Finland. Remember that?
Ah, yes.
Finland used to be part of the Russian Empire until they broke away when all the Russian revolutions happened in World War I. So, and of course, we all remember when the Soviet Union attacked them in the Winter War and World War II, and how, while it was a spectacular failure in terms of casualties, they still won in the end. Russia also would probably have, Putler also has ideas on maybe trying to take back Finland. But of course, thankfully for Finland, not only are they part of NATO, but I'm sure Putin would be like, oh no, not the Winter War again. All those hundreds of thousands of casualties took to Finland's like 10,000 or whatever. Oh no, we don't want that, do we? It would probably be like hilarious seeing the casualty figures they tried it again on Finland. And of course, I gotta also add on 2 people that I don't think we even covered this yet. But of course, Russianism is so potent that the Duma has actually passed a law recently that would basically bring back a claim on Russia has on Alaska.
Of course. Yes, I saw that from Dylan. It's like, of course.
I liked when Biden's spokesperson or whatever was brought up that question. It was like, good luck, or whatever he said. Because, you're not going to get Alaska back. I think I've even brought this up too. If they even tried doing it, I think America is going to do what they did in Command and Conquer World War II when the Soviet Union tried to invade America. I think they'll just nuke the invasion force. You're not getting Alaska back. You sold it to us. It's legitimate, and Cope's even mauled about it.
Yes.
Oh yeah. That thing also gave them claims to Hawaii and parts of California too.
Yep, of course.
Good luck trying to take down America. You're going to spectacularly fail. So yeah, guys. This war's about Russianism. Has nothing to do with NATO expansion. And of course, our dumb left is going to realize this. Oh, wait,
of course not, because they want a unipolar world under China.
See, we kind of bought the argument somewhat before the war. But unlike these dumb leftists, once we realized the reality of it, we had to take the L and change our minds. And all that.
Exactly.
Which is what a more nuanced, objective person does. But of course, these guys are desperate for attention and all that. Absolutely pathetic. So yeah, Sweden joined NATO. Good job, Putler. And once the war's over, Ukraine's going to join. And you can cope Stephen mauled about because your stated goal failed miserably. But we know the real reason.
Exactly.
Stupid fuck. Alright, guys. So that is all the topics for right now. And we'll see you all for episode 98.
Oh, we're getting close.